Welcome, everybody, to episode 40 of the Get Up Podcast. Hi, welcome. Did you watch episode 39? Whew, what happened there, hey? Well, we'll get to that. But first off, I just wanted to say the weather's nice. Spring's just around the corner. The date today is January 13th, and here we are hanging out. Maybe, I guess it's going to be uploaded on Monday. So the date on the Monday, I can't do math right now. I'm not that quick. It's just not something that I was born ready to do. I was not born with the capabilities to go, what's 9 times 9? Oh, 81? Yeah, because I read that on a chart. No, but I am a little bit slower with math. And also, I don't believe that everybody is born with the ability to do math, except for nobody, because it's just a thing that you just kind of teach yourself, right? Or you were taught in school. I remember when I was in math class, I made up a formula for myself that worked to do one of the problems that they gave me. And then the teacher, she was like, hey, you can't use this formula. You have to use the one that the whole class is going to use. And then that's when my passion for math kind of died. I mean, I was never fully passionate about math, but I did find it to be like a kind of fun challenge. But as soon as I was punished for taking a creative approach, I was like, motherfucker, like, it worked. But and you don't want me to use this? You just want me to do what everyone else is doing? And that's when I became a rebel. Or was it? Well, I'm not the greatest at being a rebel, you know? I got a little bit of pushback in me, but not a whole lot. That wasn't something that I do or did a lot of. Like, I remember whenever I would get in trouble, or if someone got into a squabble with me, I didn't have the capabilities to push back, to defend myself. And these days, I don't either, right? When someone comes at me with an accusation and I feel like I have to defend myself, sometimes I feel like I can't do it properly. Like say someone farts, right? Oh, Josh is going to be the main culprit here because he farts all the time because he's always eating broccoli and tuna in acting class. Say there's a fart hanging in the air. And everyone wants to look over at me and just be like, hey, you're the guy that farted, aren't you? My response to that these days, which pretty much completely unincriminates, it absolves me, is if it was me, I would have claimed my work. I would have made a meal out of the whole thing. And that seems to put people's accusations at rest over me. But, maybe a year or two ago, when someone blamed me for farting, I would have gone, No, I wasn't. I didn't fart. And then I further incriminate myself by seeming suspicious. But how do you not seem suspicious when you're being accused of something? Like, what is the correct approach? Now, I read this book called "So You've Been Publicly Shamed," and one of the approaches that it suggested, if I'm remembering this correctly, which I probably am not because I've got a faulty memory, but they said, like, you don't even really acknowledge it, or you don't let your energy be affected by it. And that's me putting an entire book of knowledge into 2 sentences for 9 people to watch on YouTube. But that is pretty much what you do. I guess that's what I would do I guess that's what I'm doing by telling people, like, if I farted, I would have made a joke about it. And that's my way to defend myself. Actually, I was on a brief road trip the other day, and there was a fart that happened, and I was waiting for everyone to just turn around and just be like, "Mister, did you fart?" Or I was waiting for someone to just like point it out, and no one did. No one pointed out the fart. They just lived in it. So what's going on? Are we not pointing out farts anymore? We're not going, "P.U. What stinks?" Or who farted? We're just going to sit here while the air stinks and no one's going to say anything about it? Is that going to create problems down the line, right? Are there things that are not being spoken of that are going to create problems for us later? That takes us into the subject for today. Communication. I have noticed in the past week, between last podcast and this podcast, that the need for communication has become... my need for communication has been satisfied by diversifying my channels for communication. Like, you can't talk about all of your problems with just one person, right? Like you can't talk through every problem in your life with your mom or your girlfriend. But if you have a diverse group of friends and partners slash girlfriends slash person you're seeing, and parents and other personal connections, maybe a therapist, maybe throw in a therapist. But if you kind of diversify the people you're communicating to, you can kind of communicate through a lot of your problems. And a lot of the time I've been finding that my problem is not the thing I'm talking about, it's my feeling about the thing that I'm talking about. Like say my problem is something that happened between a friend and I. Say there was like a negative interaction or something. A lot of the time my problem isn't what happened in the interaction. It's just like my feeling around the interaction, and really at the root of my negative feelings is my need to communicate it. And if you just talk through stuff like that with your friends, you feel a lot better. Like just last night, I was hanging out on Discord, the gamer chat, with all my cool pals from Calgary. Shout out the Pody Boys, what up? And we were just like hanging out and talking through shit. And that's kind of a cool little situation that's been thrust upon us thanks to the 2020 quarantine situation. You know, we're so physically separated that we're trying to find ways to feel more connected with the people who we love and care about. And one of the ways that I've increased the communication and the togetherness in my life is by once a week spending time with some of my closest friends on Discord. And, you know, sometimes we'll play video games. And the cool thing about Discord is that you can, like, if you have the proper streaming apparatus, you can stream it to your other friends on Discord so they can watch, like, what game you're playing. It's fucking sick. And then, you know, if you're not down to play video games, you can just like hang out and do whatever, like, and talk. And it's almost like you're having one of those like low intensity hangouts with your friends where like no one feels compelled to say to speak. But if something comes up or an interesting conversation or an interesting moment occurs, then you can address that and, you know, shoot the shit over it. Like I was sitting down and playing Smash Bros with the guys for a little bit, but I was more keen on painting. Because the person that I'm seeing, she got me a paint set, like a bunch of acrylic paints and paintbrushes and some small canvases and stuff. And that really reawakened my excitement for painting. So instead of video gaming with all my homies, I just decided that I wanted to paint, because I've been thinking I wanted to do a canvas for a while. And a canvas is really intimidating because it's permanent, right? Like you can't undo with a painting. You can only do more, or just have like a more calculated approach in hindsight. So it was really cool to throw the ideas that I had for this painting at my homies, and they're able to help me kind of clarify what I was going for. And like, I wasn't going for anything deep necessarily. I tried to think of something deep. Like I smoked a bunch of weed outside, and then I went in the shower and tried to think of a bunch of ideas, like the thing you are seeking is actually seeking you. And like, I'm pushing down my problems. Watch me push down my problems. And I wanted to paint someone like pushing something down. But eventually I just settled on Welcome to the Frog Hole. That was like, I think that's so much more my speed is Welcome to the Frog Hole, because now that's something that you can just interpret any way that you want. Because what do frogs mean to you? What does a hole mean to you? And what does it mean to be welcome to the frog hole? So that's the painting I'm working on. I'll show you guys where I'm at with it right now. I have just finished. So color correction is kind of fucked, but for my audio listeners, I'll talk you through this. But what we have here is an orange background, and I'm thinking it's kind of like a wall, and then this yellow part is a break in the wall, and I'm thinking that inside of this break in the wall, this yellow thing here, I'm gonna paint a frog hand, like a webbed frog hand. I don't even know if frogs have webbed hands, but I'm gonna make it webbed anyways because fuck it, this isn't realism, right? And then I was thinking maybe it would hold a key, but since I did a yellow background, I probably can't make it hold a key because I was gonna make the key yellow. And it's just gonna say, welcome to the frog hole. So I'm really excited to move forward with that And it's really cool that I'm painting again, and I'm really thankful that the person I'm seeing was able to kind of reawaken that passion for me, because it's been a while since I sat down and like really put in work on a difficult canvas. Because canvases are really intimidating, and it does require a little bit of forethought. Like, sure, you can sit down and paint whatever comes, and I really do enjoy doing that. But when you invest money into, buying the paints and the mixing ingredients and shit, and you bought the canvases and stuff, sometimes you don't want to bullshit around. Sometimes you want to know kind of what you're going for, but at the same time being open to the process. Like I wanted the whole to be white. I don't have any white paint, except for some mixing stuff, which apparently is just getting overpowered by the yellow that I bought. Like the mixing white isn't even making it lighter. So I thought I knew how painting worked, and I don't. But that's kind of what I'm doing right now, and it's cool to be back with painting, because it's a nice little side activity where, maybe a year from now I can look back at this painting and just kind of see where I was at the time. Now, Welcome to the Frog Hole is not like indicative of like where I am in life, but maybe it is. Maybe a year from now I look back at the Welcome to the Frog Hole painting, if I do it to my satisfaction. Maybe a year from now, I look back at this point in my life as the frog hole. I don't know. I'm trying to remain open to it, but I'm really stoked that painting's a part of my life right now. And also, paint takes a long time to fucking dry, dude. Oh my god. So that was one of the other things that came up was I painted the whole background orange. I had to wait so long for it to dry. Fuck, dude. So instead, while I was waiting for it to dry, I did some watercolor, and then I have these cool special crayons called Caranache. Maybe that's the brand, but it's basically like a crayon, but if you apply water and then rub it with your little finger, shit goes wild, and you can just do crazy shit with the colors. Like you get that kind of gritty crayon on texturized paper look if you just color with it. And then when you apply the water, it makes the whole color solid. And then you can kind of like form gradients and bleed colors from one to the next and do whatever. And so while I was waiting for the paint to dry, instead of going on my phone or playing a video game or just deciding the activity was done, I was like, fuck, well, I sat down to paint, so I'm going to paint more. So I created more things. And I'm kind of out of practice with visual expression. Like I am sporadically designing things for my website right now. It's kind of a slow project of mine that I'm not working too much on because there's so many other things going on. But I didn't make anything I was overly stoked on, which seems to be kind of a theme right now with visual art with myself. But I was just glad to create things. And that kind of takes me, let's kind of follow that thread to what happened last week with the podcast. Because, bro, that was like, okay, so I've recorded shorter podcasts before, but I've never just fully lost steam halfway through a clip. Now, what I mean by clip is that I record this podcast visually in 25 to 30 minute increments because my camera dies around 30 minutes of recording. And that's why we have the little quote unquote commercial break, even though there's no advertisements or anything. Just because, the camera will die and I want to just make sure I'm not halfway through a thought while I do that. And when I started the second clip, I just lost all momentum. There were so many things going against me that day. There was some things going on in my life that I was very uncertain of, that I was pretty frustrated about. In general, I was just kind of frustrated with where my life was at that day. I was very tired. I hadn't had enough sleep. I hadn't eaten very much and exercised very strenuously before. And I was high. Like I smoked weed before, which I haven't smoked weed today before the podcast, but sometimes I do. And, sometimes that makes the podcast interesting and weird and wacky and fun. And other times it just makes me fucking boring. And that was one of those times where it just, after 25 minutes, it just made me kind of boring and lame and weird. So, And then the final nail in the coffin for that podcast was that in the middle of making the podcast, like while I was still performing, I decided to edit myself and judge myself for what I was doing. Like instead of me being who I am right now in this moment, I decided that I would simultaneously split my mind into the performer and then the editor / director, instead of just focusing on performing and then, providing little notes or whatever, little changes for myself. Like that's pretty much all that I can allow the director side of myself to do if I want to have a good podcast. But that the hypercritical editor director side of myself kind of took the wheel, and I felt like a lot of my energy kind of siphoned from performer to director, and I just completely flopped in a performance capacity. And that's kind of why I felt negatively about the podcast last week. Like, if you follow me on social media at Dohy, you'll see I did make a post about how that podcast felt like a little bit of a failure. And not because it wasn't funny or not because it was short, but just because I judged myself while I was doing it, instead of just, being here and saying what's on my mind, because that's what this podcast is. Sometimes I fool myself into thinking that the podcast is one thing or another thing, or I have to be funny all the time. But if I start thinking I have to be funny all the time, then I judge myself when I'm not funny. And then I'm like, damn, is the podcast even worth recording? And of course it is, because this is something that I want to do no matter how I feel, no matter where I'm at in life. I just want to sit down and turn on the faucet of my brain and just let the words come out and just kind of see what happens. It's therapy for me. And I do feel like I feel that kind of post therapy, like flushed feeling after I do it. And I didn't get that last week because I shut myself down in the middle of creation. So, I guess just like a little note to all the performers out there, like, it's good to be a little bit, to have like a tiny window of self-consciousness. But for the most part, you just need to be in the moment, and you just need to be focused on performing the task at hand. Because if you're allocating your mental resources into other areas, you're going to lose energy for your own performance and potentially slow down to a halt and completely stop yourself. Like I put basically a brick wall in front of me during that podcast. And then, with the mentality of parkour, obstacles can become opportunities. But even like I had lost so much faith in my ability to perform. I had so little energy, and I was just so down that I couldn't even see myself getting over that wall. I decided that it was better to stop the podcast instead of sitting in the silence and letting myself not know what the next thing I was going to say was. Like I was so done that I wasn't even willing to just sit there and just let the next thing come up. And I was worried that if I was silent for more than 2 seconds, then I don't know, then the podcast wasn't worth doing, or it's not entertaining, or I don't know, just, yeah. So I don't know. I think there was a lot to learn from that. Of course, after doing that, I had to figure out what happened to make that occur. And now I know how to make sure that doesn't happen again. And furthermore, it was kind of an interesting experience because I'd never fallen on my face before on the podcast. Like maybe I have in your perception, but I had never had just a total flop of a podcast. In 39 episodes, there was not a single time where I just completely lost steam in the middle of a clip. And there have been other podcasts where I've had to cut it short or whatever, and that didn't feel like a failure. But 39 just felt like a failure in general to me. But that's fine. Because coming from parkour, you learn a lot. Like you understand, I understand that a lot of learning can come from failure. In fact, you can learn more from failure. And why even call it failure? Because you can reframe it by saying either you win or you learn. right? And there is, of course, utter disastrous failure that can happen. But I think if you are going to take a growth mindset approach to this, I guess I'm the advice guy, which I was totally trashing last podcast. But yeah, if you want to grow and change and learn in any kind of discipline, then it's really good to take a growth mindset approach to things, and just understand that you can learn from every experience that you have. Of course, there's anecdotal things where, little slip-ups will happen, or there will be some sort of technological error that only happens once or whatever. But even then, there's shit to learn from that. There is some. I think I read some counter arguments to being too overly positive in the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, which I'm sure everybody's read by this point, because I don't know, I feel like maybe a year or two ago, that was like everyone that I ever saw reading in public, they were reading that book. It was just such a trendy book. And it was a good book because it was kind of like a modern approach to stoicism, just figuring out what's important, what's not, and what should you give a fuck about. Because that's kind of an important thing for you to figure out as a person, is what do I give a fuck about? What's worth giving a fuck about? And what do I give a fuck about that isn't worth giving a fuck about? Because that stuff will steal a lot of energy from yourself. But yeah, that was kind of a book that I saw a lot of people reading at one point. I read, or I listened to the audiobook for it back in 2017. And it was tough for me to listen to at some points. I don't know if I had the same experience while reading it, but I do remember there was some stuff which I was just outright in complete disagreement of. But that's kind of cool to read something that you disagree with, because then you realize where you stand on things. And then furthermore, it's good to just take in information that isn't necessarily in line with how you think or how you feel. Which is something that's kind of turning into a lost art these days. You see a lot of the news that you see coming out of America, the identity politics and just all the division that's coming from people with varying political beliefs and all the crazy shit. It's near impossible to put into words. The division and the effects of the political difficulties that America is going through, and the attack on democracy that's occurring, and all this stuff. It's so hard to keep up with. Just today I read a thing on Facebook that there is a way to track people who have been using the app Parlay. Now I don't know what the app Parlay is. From what I vaguely understand, and do not take this as information that I am certain of, but I think it's some form of communication for people who are leaning quite far to the right. And I think that the app has been banned somehow, especially pertaining to the storming of Capitol Hill, which just occurred recently. But yeah, I saw a photo on Facebook that was detailing how to track people who have been using that app. And they basically posted a way to find out their exact location. And you can know how many of those people are around you. That's kind of when I read that, I thought that was kind of weird. I didn't know exactly how to feel about that at first, because my first impression is that it's kind of an invasion of people's privacy. In a nutshell, you are putting people on blast and learning who to avoid based off of what services they use. Imagine if YouTube was labeled like a far right communication system, and everybody who uses YouTube, which is everybody, but just imagine it was a niche service. Wouldn't it be weird if there was an article that came out on how to track where everyone who uses YouTube is? It's kind of weird, right? And I understand that, especially these far right communication services can be used to communicate harmful beliefs, especially conspiratorial things like you don't want another Pizzagate happening. Like you don't want someone believing so much in a conspiracy that they take very rash physical action on something that they believe, which is actually false. But I don't know if tracking them is the solution. It's kind of an invasion of privacy. Now, I don't use it. I don't care about it. In fact, I can't even exist in a group chat without wanting to kill myself, because it's just there's so much messaging and communication and all that. Training chats, like if it's like a training chat, or the closest homies, then that's chill. But like, I don't know, I'm in several group chats right now, and whenever I get a message from one of them, I'm like, oh my god, I want to mute this for like the next 48,000 years. Like, it's just it's too many inputs. And in the life that I want to make, for me to operate the best that I can, you kind of have to limit your inputs, which is something that I should also apply to news. And I'm just going to change the clip, and hopefully I don't lose steam after the break. Well, I guess this hasn't been a funny one so far, but I'm just talking, right? But yeah, I in terms of limiting inputs, I have been consuming too much news. Like, I'm not spending day and night browsing the news, but even spending 30 minutes on Twitter browsing the news makes me feel really, really poorly about life. Like, it doesn't make me feel bad about myself as an individual, but reading too much news, especially the way that the news cycle is right now, it just makes me feel like everything's fucked. And that's not the case. Like, there's so much good happening. Like, sure, there's the coronavirus, and, Trump's fucked up, and there's all this fucked up stuff happening in America, and, however many 100 people died today from the Rona in Canada or whatever. But just reading the news, even just a little bit of it, it's crazy to notice how negative of a mindset it puts me in. It completely changes how I see life. It's like the colors in life start to fade a little bit just from reading the news. And I want life to be vibrant and awesome. Like, that's like, and I'm not going to go and, color life the way that I want it to be. But I definitely don't want life's natural color to be sapped away from myself just because I can't control my attention span and can't control my impulses when it comes to consuming news. Because I have been noticing that recently I haven't been as mentally healthy as I wish that I could be. Because in the past, I've really prided myself on really having a grip on my mental health and really taking control of my energy and controlling my input sources and my habits, and really biohacking and all that stuff, and really trying to just, to the extent that I can control, really have a positive outlook on my own life, because I think that your attitude will determine your latitude in that case. And I have been noticing that I've kind of taken a dip with that. Now, there's so many directions for me to go with that, but what is the most within my control, and where I do see a lot of potential for positive change, is, for one thing, consuming less news. Because sure, it's great to know what's going on in the world and blah 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 blah, but there's just so much negative. And it's just been as part of my life examination process, I'll say, I feel bad. Why do I feel bad? When did I start feeling bad? What changed? What could change? What needs to be changed? Or whatever. And so, it's the news consumption thing is one of the things that I need to change. Another thing is, we're in the middle of winter, where I don't know where you're based, Mr. Viewer or Mrs. Viewer or MX Viewer, they, them. I don't know where you're based, but where I am, in Vancouver, during the winter, it's very gray, and there is a lot of seasonal affective disorder with a lot of people. Like, you really have to keep up with your vitamin D, not even just for the Rona, but like just because there's no sun here. It's just raining all the time. We're actually having like a really nice day right now, and like I'm probably going to go spend some time outside later. But it's you really like I'm in the middle of, being affected by the seasons, and then, there's the news and blah, 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 blah. But another input that I noticed that needs to change is my social media intake. Like, I have this little widget, thanks to the iPhone 12 Pro. I have a little widget guy where it shows my screen time for the day and just how much time I've spent on my phone. And it kind of blows me away how much time I spend looking at my phone. Now, it makes sense if I'm filming things, taking photos, texting the girl that I'm seeing, or, texting friends or messaging or whatever. But still, it's pretty insane how the screen time adds up. Like, it still kind of blows me away, because I feel like I'm, in a lot of ways, doing pretty well with my self-control. But then I look at my phone and it says you've spent 3 hours staring at your phone. You spent 4 hours staring at your phone. Holy crap. 3-4 hours a day? I'm just dumping my consciousness into my phone for things that are not necessarily immediately pressing or that important in the moment. It kind of blows me away, and it shows me how much time I spend on social media, which really spikes when I make an interesting post. Like, for example, yesterday I had a really sick training session with my boys, and I took a lot of cool videos and posted it, and it's so hard to just post it and ghost it, because you want to see who fucks with your shit, who really thinks that what you did is dope. And it's so tempting to just be like, hey, who thinks this is dope? Like, every second of the day, you're like, oh, you can just refresh this and feel good about yourself. You can get a little, basically like a crack shot, like a little sugar snack of social media attention. But that goes sour really quick, because social media posts, their momentum kind of goes down. So you get that like crazy shot of dopamine from, people thinking that your stuff's really dope, and it goes sour real quick, because it hits the down, and then your standard has been set, or it hits a downward trend, and your standard has been set so high for social media interaction from the initial impressions, that as soon as the momentum starts to leave, you desire the old attention that you're getting. So you keep refreshing it, and you want to see how many likes you got. And every time you open your phone, you get only 3 more likes, or 2, or 1, or 0. And that's when you start to feel poorly about yourself. And honestly, it's both parts of the trend that will, in the long run, make you feel less good about yourself. Because, with the initial spike of attention that you're getting, you are attaching your personal value to something that you've put online, and you're attaching your personal value to other people's perceptions about yourself, which I think is like an inherent problem with social media. Is you're spending a lot of time dwelling on, like, if you're spending a lot of time on social media, you're spending a lot of time dwelling on other people's impressions of you, and you're also spending too much time paying attention to how other people are living their lives, which isn't even accurately represented. They're just posting the highlights of it. Or if they're really fucking depressed, then they're only posting the bad parts of it, and then you don't want to see that, and then you mute them. But so spending that much time paying attention to people's impressions of you isn't good for your self-image, because you're not creating affirmation for yourself from within yourself, which is truly the most powerful. That's where you can derive personal power, is by giving yourself affirmation. And you can do that by achieving goals, and you can do that by staying on top of your health and all these other things, and doing all those things that are purposed for giving you positive mental health. But being attached to other people's perceptions of you, your brain will find a way to weaponize that against you pretty quick. And then when things start to hit a downwards trend in terms of people paying attention to you, then you start craving what you had before. And then now you've got the negative effects from paying so much attention to how people feel about you, compounded with people's attention tapering off. And then you start feeling less relevant, and you desire the attention more. So you open the app more and more and more, and then you're paying more attention to how little people are paying attention to you, and you're paying more attention to how dope other people's lives are. And like, for example, for me, I've got a lot of friends with huge social media followings. So it's really easy for me to weaponize that against myself by comparing my numbers with their numbers, because, they're verified, and, every post that they get gets, 200,000 views, and, they've got whatever X many amount of likes and comments and stuff. And, I'll compare like, well, I've got more followers than this person, but they get more comments. And it's just such a dick measuring contest that it's so easy to get stuck in. And so all of that, I'm going to put that all in a box with saying this so news made me depressed, and social media is making me insecure. Because I remember maybe last podcast or the one before, I was talking about like, damn, how did I get so insecure? Because like, I'm living a pretty cool life. I'm pursuing what I love. I'm really comfortable with who I am as a person and who I'm growing to being. I'm comfortable with the growing process of becoming who I am and all that. But still, I'm like weirdly insecure. And I think there is a direct correlation with like how much time I'm spending on social media. Because, if I'm spending an hour a day on Instagram, what the fuck am I doing for an hour on social media? I'm spending an hour looking at my likes and watching my video over and over again and reliving the past. Which, every once in a while it's nice to stroll down memory lane and see the things that you've done in your past. But when you're dwelling on it and comparing it to the person you are now, it makes it changes your outlook on life and makes things not seem so cool. So I think that kind of explains the dip that I've taken in terms of mental health and joy. But, that's also not to say that good things aren't happening, because they are. And there are a lot of good moments occurring. But, the good moments are peaks. And I feel like there is the constant. There is the low level of energy that is what life is in between those peaks and valleys. And I think that the mid-level has kind of lowered for myself in terms of, thanks to the amount of attention I've been paying to news and social media and stuff. So I think I'm just going to try and remove those from my life a little bit. And so one of my measures for that is the post it and ghost it thing. Like when you post something, just leave it. In fact, if you can, if your job permits it, like if you are not bound to social media based off of whatever commitments and stuff, just delete Instagram. Like you can re-download it if you want to DM, and there's other ways to access your DMs. Like you can, go on the Instagram web version or whatever, which for whatever reason is a lot less addictive. Like I think just the way that it's set up on the web version, it's less scrollable, it's less tasty looking, whatever. So that's one of my solutions. But yeah, the post it and ghost it thing seems to be what works best. And also, unfortunately, there are other workarounds. Like I can pull up Instagram on Safari on my phone. But again, it doesn't look as cool and fun, and it's not like it doesn't run as smooth and stuff. So it's kind of nice that I'm placing those obstacles in the way of my enjoyment for social media. But yeah, just delete it whenever you can. And then, yeah, if you really need it, re-download it. And I really like how much of a hassle it is to re-download it and log into all my accounts and stuff, because it makes me want to do it less. And it's hard to remember that when you're having a really exciting day and you have like a cool post to put up and you want to see what everyone thinks of it, and you want to see if Pasha or Jason Paul or one of your cool actor friends or whatever, or some, like, you want to see if some director is creeping you on your Instagram story or whatever. When life gets exciting on social media, it's really difficult to remember that. So I don't know the solution to that, and yeah, bada bing, bada boom. But that's just kind of where I'm at with life and with social media and all that jazz. Yeah, that's so I'm working on it, and yeah, I think it's really good to take charge of your mental health, especially in the middle of winter, because things do just kind of take a dip around there. And but spring is just around the corner. Like I'm really excited for the warm weather to come, and I'm excited for dry grass, because the grass gets so muddy and soppy and wet here, and you can't do anything on grass. But in the summer, I every day can go out into this field outside my house and go and stretch in the sun, and just, oh, dude, I'm so excited. There's so many things I'm so fucking excited about for summer. Like, I don't think there's going to be a film industry shutdown this year, which is excellent for like auditions and things like that. Like I totally missed out on the early part of the season last year because I was traveling, and then I came back and then the Rona hit. So there wasn't a whole lot of auditions happening early on in the year. And this year I won't be missing it. And hopefully there won't be a shutdown. And then I just signed with a talent agency for voiceover or voice acting, whatever you want to call it. And I'm really fucking stoked for that, because that's an avenue that I really, really, really want to take. Because ever since I was a kid watching cartoons and stuff, I wanted to make voices along with it. And whenever I would be out and playing with my friends, I would make up my own voices and do little vocal modulations. And even when I'm alone, I'll just like make up voices and be a total creep and weirdo about it. And it's really cool that is now a potential avenue for me. Like, I'm really excited that opportunity is now in my life, because now there is a potential that if I perform an audition well enough, I can make money from making goofy voices. Like, how fucking cool is that? So that's one thing that's happened that I'm really excited about, and that's just a new possibility in my life. Like, it kind of feels like every audition that comes in is a bit of a lottery ticket, and now I've kind of increased my amount of lottery tickets. And then also I went on all my acting websites and I updated all my materials and found out that on some acting websites, I had the wrong headshots up. So I was like, what the fuck? Is that what's being submitted for me for my headshot? And I got that all changed, and I've taken new headshots, and that's up there now. So I'm really excited for my potential this year. Because when I came into last year, I feel like I had a lot of entitlement to, in terms of my potential. Like, I felt like I was entitled to success. I felt like I was entitled to do well because I had just come out of school and I was like, fuck yeah, I'm ready to join the film industry and I've got an agent now and I'm going to kick ass. But it was a lot of talk and not a lot of walk. And this year, especially after all the work I put in 2020 with taking taking more acting classes while I'm auditioning and starting a podcast and doing skits and everything, like, I'm feeling sharp and I'm feeling ready for this year, actually. Like, I feel like I have the same or greater confidence compared to last year, but this time I feel like it's earned. This time I feel like it's not just I have a gut feeling something good's going to happen. It feels like I have a good feeling about my capabilities, and when opportunities come my way, I feel a lot more ready. And that's fucking so exciting. And I'm excited for the good weather to come, and I'm excited to go outside and train with my homies and be in the sun. And I live close to the beach, and during summer I spend all my time at the beach, which is like that's another reason why sometimes I can get depressed in the winters, because there's such a dramatic lifestyle change. Like, it's so wet and soppy outside that you can't do shit. But in the summer, I spend all my time outside. I'll go to the nude beach, or I'll go to the actual beach, and I'll just spend the whole day writing or reading or working on an audition that I've got coming up, or hanging with friends. And there's always cool little hidden benefits that come from hanging out with friends in the summer. Like, of course, you fill up your joy by hanging out with friends, but also there was like some cool hidden benefits. Like, there was a dude that I hung out with, and like we would go hang out on the beach, and there was a group of friends that we'd all meet up, and some cool opportunities have come my way because of that. Like, they were just able to package me into projects and pitch ideas my way, and it was kind of cool to have that networking there. And I'm really excited for this summer for more opportunity like that to come my way. Or if it doesn't, fuck it. But yeah, I think good things are around the corner, and even though in some ways things have taken a dip, it is kind of good to, like, it's kind of nice to hit a low point, and of course not have everything fall apart, but it is kind of nice to hit a low point, because it makes you, like, when you hit a certain point of depth, when you let yourself fall, or something's holding you down, it calls you to examine your life and what needs to change. So that's it. Like, I think feeling negatively about your life is just an indicator that things need to change. And that makes things not so bad. And if you are feeling negative in your life, why not do some journaling and just sit down with a pen and paper, or, write something on your laptop and just see what comes out, see what you talk about. Like, and things might not make sense in terms of what you write about. You might be overwhelmingly negative about everything, which can happen if you're just in a negative headspace. You'll just reflect on everything negatively, even if that's not truly how you feel in general about things. but it'll point to where you feel. And sometimes you'll get a little breadcrumb. And if you follow the trail of breadcrumbs, it might take you to how you actually feel about things and the source of why you feel that way. And yeah, it is also easy to take mental health for granted, positive mental health, which I do sometimes. Like it's very easy to take it for granted because I don't know. Sometimes you forget. I forget that I'm doing all of these things every day that make me feel so good. Like in the summer, going out and being in the sun all the time. Or I go out and run every day and I meditate every morning and I read my blackboard with all these cool affirmations on it and I talk to people I love, and like those are the things that make me feel. Oh, and I do parkour and I exercise and I'm pursuing my goals like acting and voice acting and comedy. And that could be another reason why I'm not feeling so good, is because there's not a lot of stand-up comedy going on, and that's something I really want to be doing with my life as well. But anyway, it's easy to think that you are an inherently mentally healthy person and that the things that you do aren't necessary. But as soon as you start slacking off with those things, then you really realize how important they are. And that's kind of nice to just be reminded that, yeah, I'm not a flawless, perfect person. And my approach, like my mental health isn't, positive mental health is not a given. It's something that you create for yourself. And yeah, and that is the whole penis and vagina and lack of genitalia for those who have neither. Yeah. So I think I'll call it there. This was a nice little talky podcast, and maybe not necessarily like a funny guy podcast, but that's the mixed bag you get with this show. Some days I feel goofy and crazy, and other days I just want to talk to you, and by extension talk to myself and talk through my problems, and hopefully it's interesting for you. If not, you've probably clicked away from this and you're watching the Joe Rogan show now, or you're watching Netflix, or you're fucking watching porn or something by now. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Shout out Wes for watching. I always appreciate you tuning in and supporting, and I'm really stoked that you've got your own podcast going on now. And also other viewers, if you want to check out Wes's new parkour edit, he's got a new edit called Safety First. It's up on his Instagram at Wes Rundle, and it's called Safety First. Or you can click onto his IGTV. It's a really easy way to find that quickly. And it's a really cool edit of all the Vancouver homies. And like he's got, like Wes has a bunch of really cool lines in there. And he's also kind of sprinkled in some of my lines, some of Tom's lines, and some Renee lines. So it's really cool to see some of the Vancouver homies also popping up in that. It really gives off like a dope community vibe, because that's the kind of vibe that we got going on here. Shout out Kevin if you're watching this. If you're not, then Bob's your uncle. Shout out James from all the way from Australia. I still think a lot about the time that we met and we were at the Glow Lights Festival and we were drinking like 99% alcohol out of like window cleaner with vanilla in it. I think that's so funny. Shout out Gavin if you're watching this. Whoa. Shout out Brody if you're watching this, and then also shout out Greg for listening to the audio version. And if you are a listener and I haven't given you a shout out, post on social media and I'll probably fucking see it. Like tag me on Instagram or send me a message on there. Don't send me a message on Facebook. I never see those. But yeah, send me a message on Instagram, DM me, or make a post saying that you're watching it, and I'll give you a shout out next episode. So with all that being said, thank you guys for tuning in. There are many podcasts on the internet, and you are listening to this one right here, which I'm very grateful for. And have a great rest of your day, and take care of yourself, and keep a dick going. Right? Is that inclusive? I don't know. But have a nice life, and see you guys next week.